I need to change around my format here. Sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing everyone that is logged in here. Just one moment, please. I appreciate your patience this morning, everybody. Alrighty. Checking to see if we have Dr. Hitchcock. Oh, there he is. Awesome. Okay. Well, good morning and welcome, everyone. I just wanted to share my screen with you really quick while we get started here. This is something that we do with every meeting, but I wanted to make sure that you see. So today we do have a bit of a change. Dr. Wallace is not able to be with us today. I know was it last month or the month before, he was able to have someone from the public health department give an update, but today that is just not possible. So we're going to have a discussion at the very end about end of year preparations and activities that you are in the middle of and things to consider. But today we do have, this morning we have Dr. Dr. Hitchcock from the Department of Health with us um, to discuss concussion management resources and reported data. And then after after his presentation, we'll hear from Kathy with the school nurse update. Okay, and as always, our meeting objectives are to receive information, get more understanding of the resources and opportunities and practices that are out there that we can incorporate to support our students' health and safety, and identify goals, ways we can improve the work that we do. And the framework is, I always put it on the slide, but this is truly what we try to base all of our practices on. And so a reminder, this meeting is recorded, so please keep your microphones muted. By all means, please ask questions, but make sure to raise your hand or drop your question in the chat. Sheila and I will be watching the chat so that we can help you make sure your questions get voiced. And then if you have any questions about getting clock hours for these meetings, please feel free to email me. All right, so with that, I am going to sorry, I need to back up here really quick. I am going to head up here and get you some information on, where did it go? Sorry. Okay, so we have Dr. Will Hitchcock from the Department of Health with us, and he sent me his short bio. And for some reason, there it is. Okay, sorry about that. Dr. Will Hitchcock received his doctorate in educational physiology from Oklahoma State University with a focus on special education and program evaluation. His work has spanned alternative school and behavioral intervention support in K through 12, adult community education, juvenile justice intervention and prevention, family violence prevention, and injury prevention. His work takes a collaborative upstream focus from a social constructivist framework. When not hiking, kayaking, or riding motorcycles in the Pacific Northwest, he acts as a consultant for traumatic brain injury and child injury prevention for the Washington State Department of Health in the Injury and Violence Prevention Program. And he is the state director for the Safe Kids Washington. So thank you so much for being here with us, Dr. Hitchcock. And you should be able to share your screen. So we'll turn the time over to you.
All right, thank you for that introduction. And let me see. There it goes. All right. Can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's talk about concussions today. Um, and we've got, let me see. That's not advancing for you. There we go. There's our learning objectives. So we're going to go through this. We've got quite a few slides to go through. Some of them we'll go through kind of quickly. I want to focus kind of in that concussion management area and reporting section once we get to that. But I do want to be able to provide us with some grounding elements as well as we go through this. So some of the slides we might go through pretty quickly, but I think you guys will have access to those slides, and so you can go back and refer to that general information. But we will take a look at some of the data from last year as we go through all this, and that way you can kind of see the outcomes of what we're seeing so far on the data collection. So I always like to start with some grounding and really kind of give a little bit of a talk about um, why it's important for us to address concussions and to address those even at within our K through 12, even at the elementary age. So you know the we're talking about concussions, which are mild traumatic brain injuries. But even though that we call them mild, there still can be some pretty significant impacts to that, and they can be serious. Most, if we catch them early and quick and provide appropriate um, uh, care and management, this people recover very quickly and usually within 3 weeks symptoms are resolved for most. That's not always the case. Some have lingering symptoms, but it's really one of the challenges around concussions is that it's kind of a hidden injury. It's internal. It's causing chemical changes within the brain due to this stretching and tearing and damage of those cells from some sort of bump or impact to the head or body. And really, it's how that head moves may determine the severity of that. If it's a front to back movement, it doesn't cause as much um, injury, but once we get to those side to side movements or the twisting of the head, that's where we see greater forces that are impacted there, and we see some of those effects. But within the school setting, the brain that's our powerhouse, right? Students need that to be able to think and problem solve and work through their problems and do that academic piece, but academics is way more than just being able to pass your math test. It's about the socialization, the communication. There's all these other sorts of things that the brain is really controlling and that do get impacted. The individual themselves, we know that brain injuries, cause problems in emotional regulation a lot of times. And communication skills. So those are all important things that students need to be effective in school and to be effective in sports if they're playing sports. So that coordination piece is really, the brain is working everything. So really important for us to be able to address these and work on this. Um, we are working on trying to get TBI as a chronic, no, identified as a chronic condition. CMS, which is our Medicaid and Medicare provider, that they really have a large influence on insurance claims and things like that, even beyond Medicare and Medicaid. And so that, for moderate and severe TBI, they have one area that has that designation as a chronic condition, and that makes a change on how we can bill for services and care and how long that care can be done. So that's an important step. It's not there for mild TBI yet, but as we continue working on that, and groups like the CDC, who has that on their website as TBI as a chronic condition, and then the National Academy of Science is doing a lot of work around that. I'm actually participating in uh, a conference today and tomorrow with the National Academy of Science, and we're looking at repetitive head injury, which is kind of the next area of this that we're looking at. So those head injuries where they don't meet the criteria for concussion, but what is the impact if we're having several of those? And so, and there has been some work in the collegiate level and NFL showing that is the next area that we need to be looking at. So, we're progressing along in this field, and that's going to help us be able to continue that surveillance, which is important. And you guys are participating in this surveillance by, helping collect this data and report it for in Washington, and that helps us have a better understanding of uh, how students are acquiring these head injuries, what's the situations around that, and that helps us provide prevention options, and then also provides information to bring in more research and to get funding, in the future to be able to address the needs that we see as a result of these. So lots of important work around that. So let's take real quick, let's take a look at the some of our findings from the last year's report. This report is available on our DOH website, when you go to the school concussion reporting webpage. That full report's there. We're going to take a snapshot look at some of these. I'm not going to go over the summary findings, but we'll look at some of these charts and graphs. It gives us a better visual representation. Um, so what we see, most of them are in our sports. Some of that is because of how we're collecting the data. Our law is really heavily focused on that sports aspect of it, although it does include other activities. But we were the first state to come up with a return to play law, and that has kind of been our focus. That's what we know. That's what we're used to. We need to get more into that return to learn, return to school type of phase, but and that'll change how our data looks a little bit. But here's what we see here. Of course, our contact sports are the ones that are up there. If we're talking about our younger kids, recess and playground or PE class, that's where we're seeing our injuries. Kind of makes sense, right? But you can see there's a pretty broad span of where we see injuries, and this is just the list. We cut it off at this point because we get to 6 and below, like there's a lot of things that just pop up here and there, and so that as kids are just doing their thing at school. Um, most of them are in high school, but interesting enough, the majority of those in high school are actually our ninth and 10th graders, right? And so I think that really points to a couple of things. One, um, just that development of the body and the brain making them more susceptible to those injuries as they go into these contact sports. And um, they're also, a lot of these kids may be newer to those sports. They don't have the skills down, the skills that might help them, protect them from injury. And so just that learning curve of learning that sport and how to play it safely, I think is also an impact for those students. So um, some things we want to consider, in our policies around addressing our school athletics. The other thing I wanted to take a look at and show you today is just our history of previous concussion. Um, we don't have a lot that have multiple ones, but we do have some, and there's, 100, a little over 100 had at least one within the past year. So that's where, it gets a little concerning with me, especially as we get into three and more concussions. If a student's having that many concussions within the course of a single year, um, we need to be looking at why and what's going on with that student, and um, maybe making sure that they're getting a referral to their primary care physician to really look into that a little further and see what that susceptibility is, or is it that they're just engaging in a lot of uh, at-risk behaviors and just really active and bumping around all over the place. We need to look at those things because we know that when we start seeing three and more concussions, especially in a short span, there are some longer lasting, larger impacts to overall functioning related to that. We also have a lot of students where we don't know. 500, over half of our students we did not know if they had a previous concussion. Some of that may have been that the student needs some better education on what a concussion is, so they may not have known if they'd had a previous concussion. Some of it may be just because of capacity, we may not have been able to get access to that information. But that would be a good number for us to be able to bring down and really have a better idea of whether or not we're seeing multiple concussions or not um, in our data. Days absent from school. Um, you know, most kids are back pretty quickly. That doesn't mean that that's the right number, right? Having being back in, 0 to 2 days, is that a good number, or do we need to have them having a little more rest? It depends on the injury and the student, but for the most part, students aren't missing a lot of school from this, which is good. We do want them to come back rather, as quick as possible, but that's kind of should be guided by symptomology. And we'll talk about that more here in a little bit. Return to learn, return to play. Um, 7 days to return to their normal learning environment. This means they've got enough recovery that they're able to go back and fully do regular classroom stuff. They're taking tests, they're doing their things, and return to activity. They're back to full play, competitive play on that. 7 and 14 days, respectively, on that. This mirrors what we see nationally. So, again, doesn't mean that it's exactly the best protocol, the best rates, but that's what we're seeing, and we're kind of typical. It's typical. Um, the other thing where we really need to make some changes is students receiving modified instructional plans. Um, and this is here we're only seeing 53% of students having those accommodations, and we really should have more. If we're focused on a return to learn model, we really should see more of these students having some sort of modified instruction in that, and working with teachers to make sure that they know, have some resources for that, and know how they need to adjust and how long to adjust and what to work with the student on monitoring symptoms for that. So let's talk about um, identifying concussions, because that's, I think, one of the challenges that we have, especially if this isn't your field and you're not working with us on a regular basis. For teachers, I think it's a challenge, and I think this slide gives a good example of why. Because there are a lot of symptoms that could be associated with a concussion. And so, how do I know if this is a concussion or not? And, how am I going to keep all this in mind? And that's going to be challenging for the teachers. When should I refer the student to the school nurse or to an athletic trainer? I don't know. There's too much, right? And so, we need to make sure that they have some information that can help them filter through that. This is a resource that I think is really good. This is from Canada, um, but it really kind of gives this nice little snapshot. Teachers having this as on in a file folder on their computer, or a printout in their top shelf or whatever, that they can just pull out and see. Oh, Susie fell off the playground this earlier this afternoon. Am I seeing any of these signs? And you kind of look through that and say, if I see some of these, I'm going to send them down to the school nurse and get them checked out. So it allows us, really just gives them something a tool to work with, and be able to move forward on that. Here's another resource that I think is really good. I think this is good for our school nurses. This is from the CDC Heads Up. It's on their CDC website, and you could download this and print this out and use this for when a student comes into the school clinic or office, and um, gives you some time things where you can monitor over time. That way, you can look at the danger signs. If we see, some of these danger signs, the pupils are different sizes, or they're vomiting repeatedly, consciousness isn't quite stable, um, a very severe headache. Those are signs for, emergency response. We want to call 911 and get them out there for the child's for emergency care. But we can also look at these, regular signs and monitor for those. And then, check them when they first come in, see how many signs and symptoms they have. At 15 minutes, we can look again, and if their symptoms are increasing, or um, um, maybe getting worse by that 15-minute mark, even if they didn't have the danger signs, we could go ahead and call, EMS, and have EMS rolling on the way out there, so, because we see that increase in signs. And maybe at the 20-minute mark, EMS is just rolling up, but now we're starting to see the first danger sign, and we've already got them there, right? So it doesn't hurt to call and have them heading on the way, even if they get there and they are able to check them out and say, you know what, we don't, just call the parents and they can follow up with their physician. But we've got this record. And then as you record this over time, this is something you can also then print out or copy and give a copy to EMS as they transport, or give to the parents for them to give to the physician, so that they can see the progression or improvement that was seen over time while you were seeing them. So I think it's a useful tool. It's a great tool. There's some other tools out there um, that can help with that, but these are a couple of good ones just for that awareness piece. And it helps you kind of look at the key symptoms and be able to track those. So I think those are good tools. Um, and here's the kind of list of symptoms that we if we see these things happening with the student, that there may be something more going on. We may have some bleeding um, in the brain, or have uh, some other more serious injuries, or a more serious concussion that's going to need pretty quick care. And that's with concussions, the um, how quickly we get care, it really makes a big difference on that prognosis. And so we want them to be getting care as quick as possible for better outcomes. Here's just some other tools that I think are useful. Some of you may be familiar with the SCAT. Our athletic trainers, I'm sure, are familiar with SCAT. There's a child version for those 5 to 12. Those are available. You can download those online, and I think I've sent a packet that has some of these resources if it worked, if it came through okay, and so you'll have access to some of these But all these really kind of look at similar symptoms, and have that on there. They're set up a little bit differently, so you can kind of look to see which tool really works for me and my work and my experience level in dealing with concussions. And you've got options out there to be able to address that. All right, so let's talk about managing concussions at school. So these are my elements of concussion management plan. There may be some other people that have different pieces, but I think it's important that, first it starts with the identification and screening. We need to have more screening tools to really help us at that front end and make sure that we're getting prompt care for students. And help us really identify in whether this is just a head injury or a concussion. Not all head injuries are going to result in concussion. Some students are going to be running down the hall and bump into each other, and um, uh, some students might get a concussion. Some students might just have a head injury that doesn't meet that full criteria. However, one of the things that we're looking at, the conference I was in that I'm in this week, is looking at repetitive head injuries. And so we know it from at least that collegiate level. Um, we do see some impact, especially in um, uh, cases of alcohol and substance use and depression and being impacted by repetitive head injuries. And so we're just the study research is just starting to look at that, and it's just starting to look at the high school and younger age groups. So we still got a lot to learn about it, but it is something that's already been recognized as, oh, there may be some some other impacts that are relevant as well. Getting acute health care after that screening, doing that triage and making sure that we're treating those initial symptoms, getting referrals to appropriate level of care, whatever it's needed, whether that's emergency care or just a regular follow-up with the um, at a clinic, um, um, or whatever. So notification, communication, all the way from whoever we have to communicate with and notify within the school system, notifying parents and students, but not just and that's not just that initial notification, but it's communication throughout the whole process, right? And so that's a continual piece where we need to be educating and receiving information and giving information. And so one of the things that will help us also in treating students and managing their care in school is making sure that we get necessary information and releases from physicians and things like that, and allow us to be able to communicate back and forth more effectively. Um, Oregon has passed some laws where they can actually do that within the schools and communicate back and forth with medical professionals, and that is making some difference in their ability to provide that care. We need some policy here in Washington and to do that. And some of that comes around that return to school type of legislation that we don't have here in Washington. Some other states do because they took our policy legislation and they adapted that and moved it forward. But um, we still need to go back on our legislation from the Light State law and add in some return to learn pieces that will make it easier for us in the school systems. And then we have our return to learn activities and activity protocols that we will follow. And that's where we're monitoring those symptoms and signs with students, parents, teachers, healthcare providers. Everyone has a piece in that. And then, our final evaluations and reporting, getting that final evaluation, medical evaluation to know, okay, their symptoms have subsided, they're ready to go back to regular care, and then reporting what we've learned and experienced from all that helps us learn more. So here's our steps. When we get into that kind of return, that management piece, here are the kind of the common steps around that, around this. And um, we're really good about those return to activity steps and return to play steps. It's symptom limited. We know that it doesn't necessarily have to be, we don't want student or people with concussion to be totally isolated. Um, Having a week long of isolation is not good. We know that having some activity and doing some things are actually good for that recovery. But it has to be slow and it has to be, managed by their symptoms, and whether those symptoms, they're getting new symptoms, or the symptoms are subsiding or staying the same or increasing. And that determines when we move up to these next levels. So, just like with return to learn, or return to play, it's symptom limited activity. We move into, once we're not having any, those symptoms have subsided somewhat and they're starting to drop, then we can go into some light aerobic exercise. They can do some walking. They can maybe some light weightlifting or do some yoga or Tai Chi or something like that. If they don't have any more symptoms, or their symptoms don't get worse, they can then move on into the next level and try some sports specific exercises. Maybe now they're doing a little bit of running, they're, lifting their full weights. If at that stage they experience any um, um, increase in symptoms, maybe that they start to get a headache, or their headache gets worse, then they're going to stop and they're going to take a step back for a day or two and go back to that step two and go to light aerobic activity. And they're going to continue that process as they go through until they are able to do full contact practice without any symptoms. And once they've done that for a couple of days, then they move on to um, full play and get their clearance for that. We should do the same type of process with our academics, right? And so um, there's a lot of times that we follow this return, especially for our sports players, where we're following the return to play protocol, um, and doing these steps for them to return to that activity, but we send them right back to the classroom, and we expect them to jump right back into that, and do their testing and do these complex problems and things like that right away. And so what we really want to do is we want to be able to do the same process that we're doing with the play um, into the academics, that we have a short break from cognitive activities. We tell the students, just stay home. Go home for the rest of the day. Stay home tomorrow. We'll see you the next day. Or we'll see you after the weekend. Come back on Monday and we'll get started. And then we look to see how long we monitor, help them learn what the symptoms are that they should monitor. Um, Help the parents understand what they need to be watching for and observing. And then when they come back to school, make sure the teacher has that same information. And we monitor those symptomology. And if we see that we start them out, maybe they just come back to class and they just sit there and listen in class. That may be their first day back. The second day, maybe they're doing some reading and doing some more remedial work that's easy. It's not taxing on the brain, um, but it gives them some work, right? I like to think of a concussion kind of like a brain sprain, right? Like, so think about your ankle. If you sprain your ankle, you're not going to come right back into that full, you're not going to go out and run the next day. You're going to give it a couple of days of rest. You start working it, you start slowly stretching it, then you do it, support it and provide some support as you do some light activities, and then eventually you work up to your full thing. Same way with school. Because of that internal impact on the brain and it's affecting those neurochemicals, we need that to have time to repair and recover from that. And so we want to provide that ability for it to have a little bit of a rest and to come back. stretch it a little bit with some of that light schoolwork. Maybe of it, that they move into, then they move into a little bit heavier stuff. They're doing some homework. And with reading, they read. If they start to get a headache, we tell them that's your limit, right? And maybe they read for 20 minutes. They start getting a headache. We have them put the book down for a couple hours and then go back to it, and see if they can read again without the headache. And uh, maybe they, first time they make it 20 minutes, maybe the next time they make it 40 minutes. So we help them understand how to follow through those with those progressions. Um, and then we get them back into class in the classroom, and maybe we even do a modified schedule. If they get 3/4 of the way through the day and they start having symptoms, that's when we should send them home at that point, or have them, pull them out of the class and have them come to the student health center. And if we've got a student health center in our school, and rest there for until the end of the day. So being able to make these modifications allows them to kind of stretch and strengthen the brain. Um, you know, taking these students and using this as an opportunity during that stretching and strengthening time to then go in, instead of doing, their complex classroom work, but having them go and be able to do some lessons on reading skills or study skills, so that we're then strengthening them so that they're even stronger once they do come back, would be ideal. Um, Sometimes that's a challenge with our school resources, right? Depends on a school and the resources, but things like that, if we can show that those are effective, then that, hopefully leads to future funding down the road. So we need some more studies that help support that. And then they get back to their full return to their schedule and activities. I think this is an important piece, that everyone has a part in this recovery, right? It's the students have a part, the parents have a part, the teachers, are um, healthcare workers within the school. And some schools are lucky enough that they have a concussion management team and they have all these different people that are able to come together. Not every school is going to have those resources. But even if we don't have a formal concussion management team or protocol, we can still implement a lot of these things and help educate students, parents, and teachers to be able to, on these health aspects, so that they can be able to provide some of that self-care. Uh, all right. So some useful resources. I want to show you some resources that can help you do some of that education. One of them is our Safe Kids Washington site. This is actually done by the Center for Brain Injury Research and Training. They do this site for us. Thanks for funding from the Washington Traumatic Brain Injury Council. And I'm going to see if I can pull this up. I'll show you this real quick. So there's all these panels that have on different topics, different age groups. Brain Adventures with Mylan is a really cool little kind of claymation type thing that takes younger kids through travel through the brain, so that they know what the frontal lobe does, the occipital lobe, and all that. It's kind of we want to have those opportunities to prime them for this better learning of biology later on, was kind of the emphasis behind that. But all these really, most of these topics really have something to do with some sort of traumatic brain injury, concussion type of aspects. But you can see there's all sorts of different topics across there. They're all interactive. They have something for parents. They have something for kids. But the brain injury guide for parents, um, parents can go to this and get some information. There's lots of resources that they can link on um, to be able to help address their student while they're dealing with this, how to monitor the symptoms. There's a tip sheet that I think is good for parents. You know, it gives them that information and they can go through and they can, you know, find a checklist. Um, and I think this is really good for them to see how am I progressing? Am I ready to go back to the next or go to the next level, right? So this gives them something very concrete, helps them think about, you know, is it happening with my physical activity? Is it happening with my thinking? Am I thinking so hard that my brain is getting strained? I need to take a step back. And then the other thing I like about this tool is it helps them with that kind of self-awareness to think, am I am I am I myself or is there something still different, right? Which really is I think a good aspect around concussion recovery um, on that. And so a really good tool that I like that parents will have access to um, from here on the Safe Kids website. There's resources for return to school. I think this one's a good one that helps them kind of get into that mode and can look at what common school supports they might be able to talk with the school about and things like that. There's one here about for teachers that gives a little bit of brief, information and then has, the return to school website, which I'll show you or we'll talk about as well. Um, on there for that. So lots of, and that's just a few of the resources um, in there. Info Cabeza is a interactive thing that's really good for kids and parents, focused on the athletics piece, but it would work for all. Um, so that's one resource. I want to show you another resource, Return to School. This is our return to school. Some of you may have even done in the classroom course. Um, uh, Educators can get clock hours for this, for doing that course. But what we have on this website, and this was done by Seabird as well, um, are some tools, and if you go to the tools section, then it gives you broken down by different categories, different resources. So school nurses, you can go here and you can find a CDC heads up fact sheet. Here's the CAT. So you got all sorts of different resources here that might be useful for you, different checklists, things like that. Some of them are very similar, but again, go look at them, find the one that works for you and makes sense for you or works for what you're trying to work on. You can um, download those and or get information um, about that work. So um, this is an excellent resource here. And there's a section on there on tools. There's a section for parents, so you can you could go to the parent section and find different resources that you want to be able to have as a handout that you can make as part of your protocol. That if a student falls and hits their head, that you're giving A, B, and C to the parents so that they have information and resources to take home with them. So, all right. And I think there's also the CDC heads up website. If it's still there, I haven't checked recently. Um, if it's up, this is a good place to get lots of resources. There's a section for schools. There's a section for medical professionals, and there's a section for parents. And so lots of resources on there. It's a good website. It's a lot and gives you lots of information. So and then if the um, there's a couple of our research centers that do concussion management programs. One of them is the Center for Brain Injury Research and Training at the University of Oregon. That's where the Return to School is. The Return to School website is kind of a self-help area where you can go and kind of get the resources you want. And if you need extra help with that or have questions, you can reach out to them and go to their contact page. But it's really kind of hands-on. You pick what you want. Um, at the University of Washington, the Harborview Injury Prevention and Research Center, the Return to Learn program there is more of a hands-on guided process where they will work directly with you and help you get that process set up. So depending on what your capacity is and what your preference are within your school or your school district, you can reach out to these two university centers and look at these. The models are kind of similar, just how they're incorporated in and the level of support that they are providing to you directly varies with Harborview doing more of that direct interact and engagement. Um, and some of you may have even participated in one or both of these over time. So, all right, let's talk about our reporting process real quick. So the tool is located on the DOH website. It's on that website. Not only is the link to the reporting tool, but you also have an Excel sheet that you can download. Some schools use that to kind of track over time, or track, they'll like Olympia, they they'll track by, I think they track by sports season. And so they'll take all theirs for football. And then at the end of the football season, they put in 15, 20, 25 different reports all back to back. We have some other schools, some of our elementary schools where you know, they maybe only see one or two students throughout the school year. And so when one student gets, their a concussion, that when they come back to school, they'll report just that one. And then, 2 months later, maybe they have another and they'll report it individually. And then some just keep track of all those and they do a big reporting at the end of the school year. Um, either way is fine. You can track it and report it however works best for your school or how many, what that caseload is at a time. Um, as long as you get that reporting in by June 30th, you make it work for you. The tool is open continually throughout the school year. It'll close on June 30th as we pull the data off and to analyze that for the report for that year. And then we make any necessary changes to the tool, and then it goes back up around July 15th or so for the next school year. Um, on that. So there's also a PDF form if it's helpful just to have that ahead of time, just to know what questions are going to be on there. But the tool is very simple. It's very quick and easy. It's to use. It's Microsoft Forms right now, and it asks you a couple of questions up front. Those questions are the questions that are kind of that criteria to meet the legal requirements of reporting. And so if you answer yes to both of those questions, it is legally required for the school to report. If you answer no to either one of those, it's not legally required. We want you to still report it. Because that's where we're getting that information, the supplemental data to the legislators say, hey, it's not just these very restricted pool of injuries that we're seeing this, but this really impacts schools broader. And here's the other numbers that you aren't otherwise seeing, right? So we want them to know that there is a bigger scope. And we get quite a few that report on that it may not have been followed up. A lot of times it's those ones that aren't followed up with a confirmed diagnosis from a clinic. There's all sorts of reasons why a family might not um, follow your recommendation to follow up with a clinical visit. Might be, issue reasons. It might be immigrant status reasons. There's, lots of reasons why you might say, I'm not going to go follow up that. We'll just send them back when we feel like they're doing better, right? So another reason why it's important for us to give that education to families around concussion, so that for those who aren't going to um, uh, follow through with those additional referrals for care, that they at least have something, right, to help them out. So, um, and this is the reporting tool since it is on Microsoft Forms, you can do it on your phone, you can do it on a computer, you can do it on a tablet, whatever. It'll change the format to make it nice and quick and simple for you. And so I think that's also a nice feature that makes it easy. And then um, email or phone us if you have any questions on anything. The slides I sent in have the wrong phone number. Sorry, I realized that after I'd already sent it, and changed that this morning. I was like, oh, that number has been because of the budget reduction. That phone line was shut off. So here is the phone number here, but usually email is even more effective, because then we can you can kind of put in what your challenge is, and give a time that's a good time to reach you and stuff like that, and so that we can make sure we catch you at a good time for you, and that we have the information prepared and ready for you that you're needing. So most of the time it's very simple stuff on, well, do I report A or B, so um, we can do that at any time. But and then of course we also want to hear, any things around improvements and things like that you have. We make a lot of changes based off what the schools are sending us and saying, hey, could you add this as a bullet point on there, or that I can select, and so we add those little things in. So, all right, let's do some see if there's any questions that you guys have, and we'll do questions for a bit.
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. People might be taking a minute to type something in. Oh, Kathy has her hand
Kathy.
raised.
I will. Thank you so much for that presentation. We really appreciate it. I have a question about the data that's being collected. Are you able to identify on the form, and I'm sorry, I haven't looked at it for a while, but what percentage of reports are being made by registered nurses, as opposed to what percentage are being submitted by, let's say, an athletic director or coaches? Who is making the reports this past year?
So we don't know who is actually putting the reports in, but we do know that for most injuries, it's the athletic trainers who are first initializing that identification of the concussion, and making that referral on to healthcare. Next to that is school nurses. So those are athletic trainers and school nurses are the school personnel within the schools that are saying, yep, this looks like a concussion. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
We did have someone comment that they loved all the information. It's been very helpful for them. So thank you again
Good.
for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it.
You
Does
bet.
anyone have any other questions for Dr. Hitchcock? I don't
I
see
have
any other hands.
I just have a quick question, and I apologize. I had to step away for a student need for the last 3 minutes. Um, One of the things I often run into when using the heads up screeners at school is that a student will have no lingering symptoms. Maybe they started out with a little bit of dizziness and a headache, and the headache is still there at the end of 30 minutes or an hour, but nothing else. But the way that form is written says if there's any symptom, then we need to treat them with a referral for concussion healthcare, basically. So I was just curious if you had any more information about that
Yeah.
particular deciding line.
Yeah, and with one of the challenge things around concussion is that it is variable per individual to individual, right? On what symptoms you might see, and injury, where the injury is in the brain as well, will have those impacts. And not only that, but you might see a case where a student comes in with one or two specific symptoms, and then 30 minutes later, those symptoms may reside, but you may see two other symptoms that are on that list move in. And so, because of that variability and because of different areas of the brain that might be damaging, the challenge with with brain injury is when one part of the brain gets injured, if those cells die off, they then impact the cells next to them, and then those cells die off. So you can see this. You can sometimes have this progression of symptoms that kind of changes and rotates, or comes in, goes away as the brain's starting to heal, but it's still not quite there, and so they come back. So you can have this wavering of it. If they've had an impact and they have any of those symptoms, I would follow the protocol for concussion, because of how, that nature of that. Um, and, I think that also, as we start to look in this repetitive head injury realm, that what we're also seeing is that students might have some of those similar impacts, even if they don't have a concussion. It's not going to hurt us anything to follow that concussion protocol for a head injury, even if it doesn't meet the level of a concussion, right? We're still going to be providing supportive care and providing those offsets to those negative things. And so it's a protective factor to be able to just go ahead and say, you know what, let's follow the protocol for a day and see where we're at. So yeah, I would still follow that protocol with them, even if one symptom, all the other symptoms reside, and that's a good sign. Like if the other symptoms are residing, then maybe we're all, it was a very mild injury, right? We might have a very mild concussion, and so um, our progression through those steps may be rather quick, and maybe we get through in 3 days. They're back to regular classroom activities completely. But we also want to monitor them for those first 48 hours. That's kind of the really important window, because during that time, those symptoms could come and go and change up so rapidly that we really need 48 hours to be able to know that we're out of, we're clear, or this isn't a concussion after that. So
There was a comment in the chat that we can't always get parents to follow our advice and get them to take the student to the doctor.
yeah.
Um, is there any words of wisdom for us on that one?
I think some of that can be improved by educating the parents and providing them with the information about concussions, so that they know what to watch for. They know that it can be serious, right? We need to let them know that, what the warnings, we need to focus them in on those warning signs and say, if you're not, right, if you're not taking them, if you see any of these signs, they need to go to the emergency room, not just a doctor, right? If these warning signs are here, that they could be bleeding, it could be a bleed in their brain, and that could be fatal, right? So we need them to understand that there is a severity, but also not to the point that we're scaring them, because we don't want them to be scared about it. It's likely that even if they had a brain bleed, if they get in there quick, we can take care of that, right? We have medical procedures, we have, the science to be able to do that. It's those cases where we wait and we wait and we think, oh, are they improv? And then it's so severe that when they go in that, then we're having severe outcomes. So, really getting that care quickly is important. And if they don't want to take them, that's, there's not much we can do about that except educate and say, here's what you need to here's what you need to know, and provide that education for them. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of reasons why someone may not follow up with care. And it may be that there's a language barrier and they don't feel comfortable or they don't understand anyway. They may have immigration status issues that makes it risky for them, even if it's not their child that has the immigration or them, maybe someone else in the family has that. And so it may not be safe to go. It may be that they don't have any insurance or they're underinsured and they know I can't afford this. I got to pay rent next week. I can't afford to go to the physician, to the doctor just to check. Right. And so there's having that understanding on our end also can help us kind of have that understanding of why they may not go and then say, you know what, they're not going to follow up, but I can do the best I can and provide them with more information so that we're at least getting some sort of level of care, and we do the best level of care that we can do that the patient is willing to accept, which is another factor, right? We can't make a patient do something that they just don't want to do. It's they have that choice to choose how and what they want to do.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments or questions for Dr. Hitchcock? All right. Well, we really appreciate you being here with us. Thank you so much. This has been so much information. I'm gonna have to rewatch again a few times just to make sure I get all of the tidbits. That's one of the reasons why I appreciate you letting us record you as well. So if
Absolutely.
you do have any questions or think of any questions later, we do have Dr. Hitchcock, or yeah, Dr. Hitchcock's email address on there, and I will be posting his slides, and I'll make a note on that phone number in there for you too. So thank you again.
Yeah,
We
thanks for
really
having me,
appreciate it.
guys. And yeah, just reach out if you have any other questions or if you need help connecting with one of the research centers. I can help you with that. And if you don't find either one of our local regional ones, I can connect you with Penn or North Carolina or whoever. I work a lot across many of those, so we can always make sure you get what you need. So
Thank you so much.
thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, we're gonna turn the time over to Kathy right first with our school nurse updates.
All right, thanks, Lena. Good morning, everybody. It is just absolutely fantastic to see you. Thank you for those of you who are able to turn on a camera, and those who aren't. I just appreciate seeing your names even up on the screen this morning. So thanks for joining us. I'm going to go through some updates here this morning and share some information with you and provide you with some additional resources. So go ahead and share my screen. And if you guys could just tell me when you see it and when it appears as a slideshow, I would appreciate that.
It is up as a slideshow.
Perfect. All right, so here we go. So first thing I just want to share is this wonderful quote that I found. I'm just really big on these things. They always help me get through the day. And I love this one. And this is a singer, American singer. I just enjoy life now. I just enjoy every morning I get to wake up. So I always think that it's great to start out with some gratitude in everything that we do during the day. And this is just something that I feel particularly a lot of gratitude for, just being able to get up and wake up. So something to think about during the course of the day. So NCESD updates. So just a quick update about district assessments. Thank you for all of your work getting these done. I know it feels like an extra assignment that we ask everybody to do, but that data is so important for us as both as a region and as a state. So we have almost every district assessment in. We've got about 4 or 5 that are still pending. I know I've heard from all of you that these are in process, and I just want to tell you how much we appreciate the work that goes into getting these done. So as they come in, either Lena or I are reviewing every one, and when we have questions about the data, we're just getting in touch with you again to make sure that we understand clearly what is the condition of your students, what's the condition of your staffing, and so that we are able to submit as accurate as data as we can up to the state. So again, all of our regional data gets combined with every other ESD's regional data, and that is what we combine and submit to OSPI. And we get all of this work done during the month of May and June. So we appreciate getting all these in so that we can start going through them one by one. So thank you. Another update, naloxone in schools. Just as a reminder, we continue as a program at School Nurse Corps at North Central ESD to partner with the Department of Health and with their program called Naloxone in Schools. So we have an agreement with them, and Department of Health provides us with free doses of naloxone. Now, for this particular aspect of our naloxone distribution program, DOH only provides us with doses for high schools. So this, and by high school, I mean like a high school building, a alternative high school building, or a high school specific program. So as an example of that, OMAC School District, for example, their WAVA program is going to be doing some testing of students at various sites in Washington State, and these high school students are going to be going to non-high school buildings, and their request was, could they have some naloxone in the event there was an emergency during a testing date. And those are the kind of things that through our agreement with Department of Health, we are able to provide services for. So you will be receiving a survey. Many of you filled this out a couple of years ago when we sent it out to you, and it really helps. It helps us to explain the Department of Health program, who we can serve with this, as well as get a feel for you from the number of doses of naloxone, the number of kits you're going to need for your high school buildings. Some of you have just verbally told us we need this many, our doses are going to expire in our high schools, or you've sent us emails. But this is just going to be a way for us to continue tracking how many districts want to participate in this program and approximately how many doses you need. We do have doses in stock right now, so we're able to fill orders. And then as we start to diminish that, we'll order more from them. So please complete that when it comes in. It's very short and just asking for that kind of data. We also have an outstanding order with another agency. Direct Relief is a disaster response agency, and they really stepped up during the COVID pandemic and provided many of us with free naloxone doses. Now, we haven't received any or needed any from them now for the last couple of years, but we did put in another order with them, and that order was specifically requested to help fill our middle school and elementary school buildings. So we should know within a week or so if we're going to be if they're going to fill our order or not. And once they do, then we would also have some free kits to help support your schools. One of the things we'll be asking about this year too is how many actually kits you really think that you need for your buildings. We are collecting the expired doses from you when we distribute out these doses. So we're getting quite a few expired doses right now. And just something to be thinking about is to make sure that you know, like if you're getting an order and somebody else gives you 10 doses, for example, 10 kits, and you only have, let's say, a school with 50 students, to not stockpile additional extra doses of naloxone because it's just going to end up expiring. And so we're trying to find a home for this expired naloxone within our region. And if we're not able to find anyone who has a need or use for it, then we'll be shipping it all back to Department of Health for them to distribute. So that's the update for that. School-based telehealth access points. I just wanted to give you a quick update about our project that we started a few years ago, and this was intended to implement school-based telehealth access points in schools throughout our region. And the purpose of these is to really provide an agnostic approach to providing services to students within our region, which could include anything from the physical and behavioral health supports to access to their specialists, perhaps in Seattle or Spokane, various types of therapies, nutritional services, or social services. So these essentially provide a telehealth access point that could be accessed by a variety of service providers who would like to connect with that student and provide a service. So this is our list of schools right now who either have a telehealth access point set up and have already been implementing some services for their students, or are in process. They have their telehealth access point and they're in some form of creating relationships with a variety of providers who could help support their students. So I just want to thank all of you who've been involved in this project. We're right now working on a playbook about how this could work for other schools who might not have had the opportunity to set this up. And so we'll be asking some of you for some feedback about that as that gets a little bit further over the next month or so. District site visits. District site visits, this is just a quick overview of what this program is about. All school nurse corps programs across the state of Washington conduct what we've always referred to for 20 years as a district site visit. So these are really an opportunity for staff at a nurse corps office to come out under contract to a school nurse corps district and really provide a review and make recommendations about their school district's health services program. So we do these site visits. Generally, we provide 1 to 2 site visits per school year for a school district. And this year we have selected, the school nurse corps statewide team has selected our district site visits to be part of our quality improvement project that we're working on with the Association of Educational Service Districts. So the association is really the body that is kind of has representation of all ESDs across Washington state, and one of their they have lots of programs that participate with them in an effort to provide high quality services for schools throughout Washington. And it's the shared measurement program. And so School Nurse Corps will be participating with AESD this year. We started out selecting district site visits as our quality project. And by next year, we're going to be implementing some changes, not necessarily changes in how we do them, but certainly changes in perhaps how we're tracking data so that we have identified what it is that we want to report to AESD to show the value of doing these. So many of you, if you're a school nurse corps site visit, you've already had your first site visit for the year, and some districts will have a second site visit where we can follow up on things that we talked about during the first one. And again, it's just an opportunity to provide you as well as the administrators at the school district with some feedback and recommendations about their health services program. We do certainly support Class 1 districts in this effort, but it would certainly be by invitation. It's not something that we would pre-schedule with a Class 1 district. One of the things that Will talked about, and I just kind of continue on this theme about data collection, towards the end of the school year, about now as we're getting closer, one of the things that we ask you for is feedback about the School Nurse Corps program. So we use your feedback to really make improvements in School Nurse Corps. And so we like to find out what kind of services you have access that we've provided over the course of the year. What kind of services do we provide that really give you the best value for our program? And to share feedback with us about, what might you like to change about the program? What is not clear about participating in this program? So we do ask for feedback about that. And we're going to be sending you out an electronic survey. Now, as part of this survey, there's also professional development needs assessment. So that particular needs assessment is going to be going out to Class 1 districts separately, because we want to get everybody's input on what they would be interested in regards to professional development topics for the 25-26 school year. So we're collecting two pieces of data at once. So we want feedback about our program, but we also need to know what you see as your professional development needs, and so that we can focus on those things in the coming school year. So part of this also, the School Nurse Corps services feedback also goes out to your school administrators. Again, oftentimes we're providing consultation services for your for principals and superintendents who also have questions just in general about health services, or providing support for them when a position opens up in their school, or they have any kind of challenges. So we provide services for them as well, and we'll be asking for their feedback. Okay. Now, another thing, just as a quick reminder, and I know that Lena is going to be talking to you later about preparing for next school year, but this is a question that comes up a lot, and it has to do with budgeting, and to be thinking about how to have a conversation with your supervisor about the expenses associated with operating a health services program in the school. So this is just a little quick list of things for you to be thinking about and to talk about, in terms of, there are probably expenses associated with your program that sometimes they're not really thinking about until then suddenly there's a need, and then they're thinking, well, we don't have any funding for that, or where's that funding going to come from to help support our program? So these are pretty common expenses that are associated with your program. One is going to be calibration. Your equipment is going to need to be calibrated prior to next school year. That most likely is going to include your audiometer, which is probably the most common thing people are looking for help with in terms of calibration. And then some folks' vision screeners might require calibration. So you really want to be aware of your equipment and what equipment you have purchased and what the requirements are for it in regards to recalibrating it on an annual basis. CLIA waivers have an expense associated with those. Those will be almost every district needs to have a current CLIA waiver. If you have any students that require diabetes care, then you need to have a CLIA waiver in place. And so certainly any testing that's going on at the school that falls under that category by Washington State Laboratories, you would need to have that set up. So there's an expense associated with that. All of your supplies that you need just in general for your health office, your Band-Aids, dressings, ice packs, all of those things have an expense. You may need to find that you have to replace some of your equipment. It may get outdated. It may get broken. It may not be able to be calibrated. Maybe it's aged out and they can't fix it anymore. In that case, you might have expenses of additional equipment. PDA training, if you're going to be doing that, there's generally expense associated with that. And then if you run out of naloxone, or you want to have stock epi or those types of things, and there is no access available to us to provide free medications, then there could be expenses associated with those things. So just be thinking about the kinds of costs. I think one of these, sometimes budgeting is one of the things that school nurses don't often think about in regards to, they come to school and they have these, they have these needs and they're not really sure how to get those taken care of. And these can include a lot of things. This is just a short list: printers, you know, new laptops, new monitors, you know, all of these things that are needed on a daily basis to be able to function within the health services program. You'll want to make sure that you're on the list to get all of your things updated, just as everyone else is. Okay, so let's go through some national, state, and regional updates. So this is another survey. We're always asking you for information. Do you ever feel like you're just getting surveyed? And it's because your thoughts, you know, and opinions are really important. And we, as a state, it's really important for people to be looking at where is the work being done, who's doing the work, and getting feedback and opinions from people who are doing the work and are actually out taking care of these students on a daily basis. So this is another survey, and I'm going to send this link to you out to everybody via email also, because I'm just concerned if people weren't able to attend today's meeting, they would miss this. So this is a state an oral care survey or oral health survey, and it's being conducted by the Oral Health Equity Assessment Task Force that is looking to see how to increase equitable access to oral health care for all students in Washington State. So this is a pretty quick survey. It's just going to take you a couple of minutes. The survey will be open and accepting responses through April 30th. So when you get the link, I would just encourage you and really appreciate your feedback on the questions that they're asking. Another thing, this is again just a reminder, if you have not had a chance to watch the webinar or attend the webinar that Washington State Department of Health provided on the 25-26 school year immunizations, to please take an hour or so to view that when you have an opportunity. In order to watch it, you do need to set up a Train account, which I encourage everyone to set up anyway, because Train is a system that some agencies use to run their training like recordings over. And so you have access to many things by creating a Train account. And this particular Department of Health video or webinar recording is only accessible through your Train account. So it's quick to set up, it's free to set up, and gives you access to many other resources. So there's a link there to get to it, and you'll be prompted in how to set up your Train account when you get there. The other thing is that there is a library of webinars available that aren't all necessarily on Train. Some of them are and some of them aren't. But if you would like to see a full library of videos available to you on the IIS system, then I would encourage you to access their library, where they have links to a variety of recordings. This was an update that was shared with us by Washington State Department of Health. These are all related to measles. And of course, now there's a quick article at the top about the fourth person who has been diagnosed in King County. So that's a fourth person in Washington. And so I know that you know that the way that measles spreads, if we've got 4 people with measles, that means we have a lot more people with measles who yet have not been diagnosed. And this particular person who is in 4th place at this point was not related in any way to any of the other people who had been diagnosed. It probably thought that this person probably contracted measles after traveling outside the country and then coming back, and has now been identified as being positive. So along with a little article about that, then there's some travel guidelines. So if you're traveling out of the country, some things to think about, and then some things to think about when you return, in order for us to try to keep this from becoming a huge breakout here. And then some other measles updates. So as you're building your toolboxes of infectious disease information, these are some more good resources for you. Now, I'm going to move into some of the laws that we're looking at following this particular legislative session. This new law related to adrenal insufficiency and potential crisis in the schools was presented this year for consideration. It is Senate House Bill 1709 and has to do with addressing the care of students with adrenal insufficiency by PDAs. So if there is no one in the school district and a child requires an injection of Solu-Cortef in response to an emergency situation, if there is no one to administer that because the parent is not there and the school nurse is not there, then there is no one who would be able to provide this injection to the student. So that has been brought to the legislature. It looks like it is going to move through. We're still, some of these things are still pending because we have lots of laws that have not been signed yet, but this one is still moving on its way. And so something to look for next year will be, we'll update you certainly as this gets finalized, but it is going to update the RCW around PDAs in the school district, which currently is restricted right now to PDAs for diabetes and PDAs for seizure management. And this now adds another position to that, and it would be a PDA who would be able to provide Solu-Cortef injections for a student. So there will be lots of training that will need to be done, and all of that will be looked at over the summer so that this would be ready to go for you for next school year. And then I just put some quick resources on here for you. So if you're not really familiar with adrenal insufficiency and the type of crisis these students could get into, and how they would be treated, there's some links here for you to investigate, and then we'll have some statewide training recommendations coming from OSPI. So this is just a quick overview from the bill, like eligibility, who can serve as a PDA, type of training that this person needs to get in order to be able to respond, and then release of liability. So essentially they're following the same language that we already have in the laws related to the diabetes PDA and the seizure PDA, by kind of mirroring what we have in place already legally. And that is coming. So that's coming. Now, another bill that is still kind of working its way through, and we're keeping a close eye on, is the bill related to parental rights and student privacy. So just as a quick reminder, Initiative 2081, which was put to a halt last year in 2024 and then kind of brought back, and approved. It is still being fought in the legislature. There's two bills that are out there that we're still keeping an eye on. One is Senate Bill 5181, and the other is House Bill 1296. And those, again, they have not been, signed into law yet, but are still, but is still very much alive. And it's Senate Bill 5181 in particular, because it is the one that really talks about access to the students' medical records in the school setting. And so for those of you who recall, we did send out some guidelines from OSPI on how to manage Initiative 2081 in the school setting, how to interpret the language in those laws, and actions to take within the school setting. And those things are available on the Google Drive, and we can certainly add the link to this PowerPoint and send it out to you again. But within a month or so, we are going to know the status of this, and then watch for additional support information moving forward. This is a very interesting study that's been done, and I'm just presenting it here quickly because it is certainly not something that's been approved in terms of changes in practice in Washington State, but I did want to make you at least aware of it, and that it could be something that people are going to be looking at here in the future as a treatment option for students in the school setting. This was a research study that was done and actually has just recently been, you can read the research article here, there's a link to it. And what they were looking at is improved therapeutic management of students with asthma, particularly in the school setting where the kids are going to be in school all day long, and the benefit to the students of having regularly administered asthma medications rather than waiting for an event to occur and then treating it. This study really focused on, well, what would the benefit be to students if rather than waiting for an emergency, they simply were put on a routine medication administration managed by the school, managed in the school setting, at least one dose, in the school setting on a daily basis, and then tracked by health services. And what they're looking at is, of course, improved outcomes for the students, decrease in hospitalization, decrease in acute exacerbations of asthma, and really had a lot of positive outcomes in it. So I would encourage you to take a look at it. Certainly it would be something we would be, I think that folks across the US will probably be looking at and seeing, well, how might this change some of the ways that we have practiced asthma management and potentially change any treatment options in the school setting. So very interesting, and just recently has come out. Want you to be aware. And where did we go? Sorry about that. Oh, well, I think I clicked on the article. So okay. All good now? Thank you. Okay. And then the last update I just wanted to share regarding, regional and national updates is, I know some of you are familiar with Mayumi Wilgarat, and I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing her name. And I actually wrote it phonetically one time to help myself in the pronunciation of her name, because it is quite different than it is spelled here. But Mayumi, I just wanted to remind everybody that Mayumi has been selected to be the editor of Journal of School Nursing, which is a huge honor. It's just so wonderful to have somebody like Mayumi taking the lead on this journal. So Mayumi is currently a professor at the University of Washington. She is strong advocate of school nursing, and really has been fantastic in doing research around school nurses in Washington state and sharing it at a national level. And is just a really wonderful person, and we are so lucky to have an expert like her in our state. And for those of you who received the Journal of School Nursing, I would really encourage you to always be reviewing your articles. This is one of the journals that National Association of School Nurses produces. So one is called School Nursing, which everybody receives. You should be getting a hard copy of that on a monthly basis. And it is, the best way to get something out of both the Nassau School of Nursing and also the Journal of School Nursing is to actually take the time to read them. And I know it's hard because everybody's really busy, but you'll find excellent articles within those, and you'll get great ideas for quality improvement efforts, and hear from school nurses across the nation of how they are operating their different programs, and problems that they have encountered, or student diagnoses that they have encountered, and what they have been able to do about those things. So I just really encourage you to make sure that you're reading those, and congratulate Mayumi on being selected for that. Okay, training, events, and resources. So we still got things coming up on the calendar for this year. So Best School Nurse Roundtables. Next one is May 14th. DISH, tomorrow, that's coming up quickly. So that's tomorrow. And tomorrow's presentation is going to be on orders in the school. So medical orders in the school setting. So excellent topic, a very timely topic. Please, if you have time to participate in that, you could watch it tomorrow by logging in, or remember that all the DISH programs are recorded and you could access it later. So if you, and again, if you aren't able to do it, so many things are recorded, and it's beneficial to kind of keep a list of the types of topics that you are most interested in, or that you feel like you need more education on, and to take these opportunities as you are able to listen in and or listen to the recordings. School Nurse Day, so that's coming up May 7th. So our in-person program is going to be at North Central ESD. And so please make sure to register with Sheila for that event. The other thing I just wanted to remind people about is the open lab session. So we're going to be doing an open lab for those of you who need help cleaning up your health codes. So in your Skyward or cumulative system, if you either are unsure or struggling with how to clean up your health codes, because perhaps it could be that your health codes haven't been updated for many years, and so you have outdated health codes. It could be that people made up their own health codes and entered them into the system at some point, and you would like to get those made up health codes out of your system and just stick with the statewide approved health codes only. This is an opportunity to spend time with them and get those health codes cleaned up. Now, I know it says 9 to 3, but that doesn't mean you're on 9 to 3. That means that it is like a drop-in session. This is an opportunity to drop in, to connect by Zoom, and to spend time with someone, getting your questions answered and getting help on getting these health codes cleaned up so that you're all ready to go for the 25-26 school year. And then we have another BEST session coming up in June, and Lena has another CPR, First Aid and Stop the Bleed session coming up in August. And then the next dates we'll get out to you soon will be the school nurse orientation dates. We'll have the 2-day program again in August, and follow that up with Skyward and cumulative training. So a full plate for the school year so that people feel ready to move forward. All right, so I'll leave you with one other quote. In all things of nature, there is something of the marvelous. And again, just hope that you feel like every day is a new beginning and new opportunities out there for you to have a really marvelous day. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate each one of you.
So Kathy, there was a question in the chat from Tracy Ball. Health codes are standardized from the state, correct? And I just was going to respond back, but thought since you were finishing up, I'd just make sure that she heard you say that.
Yes, the health codes are the statewide health codes. So, and those are chronic condition code. There are statewide codes for conditions. There's statewide codes for student dispositions. There's statewide codes for other items as well. And the statewide codes, if you're not familiar with them, are all on the Google Drive. If you're not sure, or you don't have access to our Google Drive for some reason, then we could send them to you so that you have the most current codes for the state of Washington and more information about how to get your codes updated in your system. But yes, they are statewide codes.
And Tracy also asked about getting a link for the health code. I think she meant cleanup. She wrote meetup, but I believe that is in PD Enroller. Is that correct?
I believe it is in PD Enroller, but we can find the link for that and send it out after the meeting.
Okay. Michelle Starnes asked, will there be no school nurse training day remotely? Michelle, could you clarify that?
Usually on School Nurse Day, so May 7th, we have a remote access. So like last year we did Medicare billing, which was super helpful because this year we're billing Medicare. Then we had, we've had something for the last 3 years. Are we not able to do that this year, or is it only going to be the drop-in? Because that's not possible for anybody in our district.
Actually, Michelle, I'm so glad you brought that up. So the School Nurse Day always has, that we do here at the ESD, has two components. So the first component is in the morning, and that is here on site. So we have a presentation scheduled for a morning session followed by a lunch. And then the afternoon session is the one you're asking about, and that's the OSPI session. So absolutely, that is going to be available again. And that session is from, it did get shortened a little bit based on feedback from previous years. People said, oh, this is too lengthy. So the hours for it are going to be from 1 to 3 o'clock. And I believe the link for that is also already available in PD Enroller, but we can send out links to those things.
Yeah.
But absolutely is going to be happening again this School Nurse Day.
Kathy, I've been watching for that link in PD Enroller, and I haven't seen it come through yet.
Yes, they're working on it.
Okay.
They're working on it, but just know, Michelle, and everyone, that is going to be happening on the afternoon of National School Nurse Day.
All right. There was another question about explaining HIT codes, but that might be something we can email about later, or do you want to? Tracy Ball asked, can you explain code what HIT stands for?
Where, Tracy, are you looking?
If she's not able to
I
respond. Oh, there she is.
apologize. Yes, thank you. It is one of the codes that is that we've had here in North Thurston for a while. I did see it, but I don't know what it stands for.
Okay.
Previously on the form, but I can ask that tomorrow. It's okay.
And that's okay. And I'm sorry, because there's hundreds of codes, so I'm not really remembering exactly what each one is for, but we can send you the list of all the codes where it'll actually just show you what falls under each code, what the definition is for each of these codes. Would that be
okay? That'll be great. The last time I
Okay.
saw the codes updated, I think there was an addendum. Was it 2019?
It could that could have been the last one that you
Okay.
saw. The codes
right.
these are the codes that were just updated this last year. So these are the current
Oh,
codes.
awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh,
I'll look at PD Enroller.
and also if you could just put your email link in, that would be really helpful. And then we could send, because these documents are in our Google Drive, and we can pull them out and send you a copy.
And Tracy, I put my email address in there, so you can email me and we can work on getting that information to you as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking, Tracy.
All right. Do we have any other questions for Kathy? No.
Well,
All right. Well, thank you.
Michelle Rogie has entered it. So heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. Absolutely. All right. Well, okay. I will share my screen really quick. Please let me know if this is showing up in your view as the slide or as the slide with my notes, because I have not used the presenter view before on a Zoom meeting. Can you see just the slide or the slide in my notes? Can someone let me know?
The slide, right now we see the slide, and I believe we're going to see your notes, but we don't see them
Okay.
yet.
Well, let me try this again then. I will swap out my view, I guess. Hang on. Oh, goodness. All right, well, let's try something else here really quick. Thank you for your patience. Okay, let's try that again. All right, so you should be able to see my slides. So I'll go into the slideshow. And it doesn't have all my notes on it, but hopefully we'll be able to. Uh-oh. I'm sorry. Maybe third time's the charm here. Hold on. I apologize. Let's back up and share. Okay. Yay. Hopefully you see a really cute kiddo with a pink backpack running towards the bus. Okay, excellent. So I get the opportunity to speak to you today, and I am no Dr. Wallace by far cry from. So I apologize for not having a public health update for you this week or this month, but he will be joining us next month. But we get to have an opportunity to discuss a little bit about end of the year preparations, and this always feels like such a busy time. That's why I picked this picture of the little girl running towards the bus, because I'm sure everyone is ready to run off and join them on a field trip or be done with the day. So just wanted to really quick make sure you are seeing what we see in the School Nurse Google Drive, because there are resources in there that can help you with your end of the year preparations. You should have access to the All School Nurse Drive, and it has, with all of its resources, it does have 35 folders. So if you aren't seeing 35 folders, make sure that you contact us, because there might be an issue with the viewer permissions. And sometimes it's the way that you have it presented on your in your screen, whether you use folders or the little icons. All right, so one thing I wanted to make sure we highlight in here for you is the school nurse activities calendar, which you have access to in the school nurse Google Drive. And that I've always find that very helpful in the end of this year activities and preparations. So one of the reasons why it's very helpful is because it gives you a month by month activities breakdown of things to be aware of that need to be taken care of that month. It also identifies the standards of practice behind those activities that you do. And sometimes we get really caught up with everything that we do and what needs to be done and anticipating school student needs, but we don't always take the time to identify what standard of practice that our activities fall under. And I think that you might be surprised with how much what you do does fall into those activities or under those categories of those standards of practice. It can be used as a checklist, but it also is very adaptable as well for big districts and for our smaller schools. So April, May, and June is all lumped together because it seems like sometimes in the health room, these months do kind of lump together, and they just either drag by or fly by, and you're left holding on, wondering, how did I get through the day so fast? But one nice thing about the this calendar, it does have goals. It does help you remember to identify those practices that you've worked on implementing. Last year we had one of the nurses on talk about, sorry, they talked about a tracking system that they put in place. They called it the 7 Bs, but it was a method for reducing students coming to the health room constantly, but they were also using it as a tracking tool. So now is a really good time to be looking back at that data and making sure that that process that you have implemented is tracking for success. We also have standards of practice, or sorry, care coordination, and this seems to be like, this seems to take up the majority of the time. And so one of the things that is involved with the end of the year preparations, as you are very well aware, is the care plan preparation, that your emergency care plans, your individualized health plans. So during this time, you're going to want to review those current needs of the students. Does your current care plan reflect those needs of those students? Do you need to update the contact information for the parents? Are they going to a different school? And so all of those considerations need to go into their care plans. Is the new school, does it have stairs? Are they going to need to be using an elevator? So there's lots of considerations going into the end of the year for these care plans, for you to modify them. And then also communicate with the family to make sure that you have their input on it as well. Some of the things that you might want to do is look into getting uh, updated uh, health documentation from a provider at this time as well. That would definitely go into your care plan considerations. We also have some resources here. I have a little image of the book, the individualized healthcare plans for the school nurse. So that is something that you can check out from the lending library. Field trips. I don't know about you, but if you've ever pulled up to the school for work in the morning and have seen the bus drive off with all the kids waving at you and you had no idea that they were leaving on a field trip, that does leave a sinking feeling in your gut. I'm sure you are very well aware and understand the need for being notified of the field trip. So now is a great time to be discussing with your administration and your staff of the lead time that you need to prepare for these field trips. Um, Things to consider when you're preparing for those and when you've been told about a field trip is where they're going. Are they going out of state? Are they going out of country? And there's a lot that's involved in a lot of prep time that needs to be that you need to have in order to make sure that those students are safe and well cared for while they're on their field trip. Another thing to consider, obviously, is which students are going. So you do need to get that list of students that are going to be attending, what staff are going, and have they been delegated to give medications? Is there a PDA attending? Other considerations for field trips would be where. Obviously, I said out of state or out of country, that's a biggie. But if you have students that have like a neuromuscular disorder or something, a gait issue, and they're going to go to a summer camp type of day camp activity, you'll want to make sure that you consider the ground that they're walking on. Is there going to be someone to help them make sure that we can prevent some falls for these students, or are they temporarily in a wheelchair? So there's a lot of things that go into preparation for those field trips, especially medications. You'll want to make sure that the medications that your students have will not be expired before they go on those field trips, and that they have all of the documentation they need, the care plan, and the medication orders that go with them as well. Another consideration that is going to be needs to be on the radar for you is summer school. And I have a picture on here of the kids outside playing with the parachute to kind of to jog my memory about also something to think about our upcoming field days. I don't know if your schools call them a water day or play day, but field days were always something highly anticipated and very well planned out, but not always necessarily communicated very well with the nurse. So you're going to want to make sure that you know what activities the students are going to be involved in. What are they going to be eating that day? When are they going to be eating? Especially if you have students with diabetes, planning out their care around that very active day, especially if there's going to be a lot of snacks, is going to be something that you might need to uh, maybe ask for some extra help or make sure that there's an aid station outside. But sorry, let me get back to summer school. So you'll definitely want to know when it happens. Make sure that you have some time to get that prepared for your school. If summer school starts the day after school ends, that doesn't give you a lot of time to make sure that all of these things are prepared. Again, medications. Students that are going to be needing or attending summer school, are they going to need their medications? Will they have expired? Do you need new ones? Also check your medication authorization forms. Do those forms cover into summer school? Most generally do, but that is something that you'll want to make sure that you have taken care of, or at least checked to make sure that that they're covered. And then what staff will be at summer school? Are they already delegated? Have they been trained? Do you need to have a PDA available for summer school? That's always needs to be on your checklist of things to arrange. Then also on this wonderful activities calendar for the school nurse is portions on leadership, quality improvement, and then there's also another section on public health. But these leadership sections are things things to be aware of that you can still do amidst all of the commotion of the end of the school year activities. So advocacy data and monitoring. Obviously, the district health assessment, like Kathy was talking about, is something that many of you have already done. So much appreciation to you for putting that time into it, and we appreciate what you are doing to keep that data. But this also, fulfilling that district assessment, also gives you a tool to demonstrate your effort and the nursing needs of your district. It provides that summary that you can take to your superintendent to discuss where your district is at. And so we would encourage you to use this as a tool in that discussion with your superintendent. Meet with your superintendent. Oh, sorry, I did not remove that. That is a picture of two people sitting at a computer discussing. So I apologize for not removing that picture off of there. But during that time with your superintendent, it gives you the opportunity to review your health services summary, to establish goals for the next school year, but it also is a really important opportunity to plan upcoming dates for staff delegation, for your staff training at the beginning of the year, to schedule your hearing and vision screenings, discuss policies that may need to be reviewed or that are coming up for review. This is also a time that you can discuss with your superintendent those supply needs, like Kathy was reviewing earlier. Talk to your superintendent about what your budget is for your health room. If you have supply needs or possibly even a professional development needs, they might have some, there might be some money in that budget. So there's an opportunity there to talk with your superintendent about it, and we would encourage you to have that discussion. So, and then the public health, staying current on public health issues. This is actually, this little snippet on here is actually taken from January, but part of that public health issue is we are meeting with Dr. Wallace monthly, but what are some of the other things that you do during the month to stay current with your public health issues? We have the newsletters from our LHJs, which is a great way to get information. Kathy is a wealth of information that she shares her her updates with us as well. But be thinking about, excuse me, be thinking about ways that you can still stay current with those issues over the summer and while you're gone. Excuse me. So to wrap it all up and to tie it in a nice little bow, um, you're after you have worked on those care plans and made all of your preparations for those field trips, we've got those medication orders, those care plans. Perhaps you have students that will need immunizations over the summer, so you'll be sending all of that information out to those families. So another thing to consider, more considerations, how are you going to be collecting the returned information, those forms that families are going to be filling out and sending back? Are they sending them back, or are you wanting them to bring them on the first day of school? Medications, who's going to be helping you return medications to families? And then how are you going to be receiving them in the fall? If you have multiple buildings and you're just one person, who helps you with receiving those documents and those medications at the beginning of the school year? So right now is the time to prepare for with the end in mind, and the end being the beginning of the next school year. So, excuse me, uh, I know this is a really chaotic time. The end of the school year is very, very busy, and you all do so very much, and we recognize that. And I just wanted to take a minute to bring up a few things to consider as you're trying to breathe and get through it all, and make sure you take care of your students. So um, I doubt you have, I don't, I, um, I'm sure you already have a process in place for all of these things. So I hope that maybe there might have been something new that you might have gotten from that. So I see in here from Michelle, still struggle every year with overnight trips and medications that are usually handled at home. Absolutely, completely understand. And Sheila, thank you for linking the calendar in here. I really appreciate it. I am going to pull up the last slide of the of our agenda slides. Sorry, I can't see anything. My screen has gone completely black. So I'm not really sure I'm going to be able to pull that up. But I just wanted to thank everyone for your time today and for coming. And oh, there we go. We really appreciate all of your efforts and everything that you do. And please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know how we can be of service to you. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Sheila,